Hey guys, welcome to the Neglected Podcast. This podcast is not to change your mind, but to invite you into somebody else's narrative. This is a podcast to give a voice to the neglected. It is also an opportunity for all of us to engage.
So what about the phrases like when you hear somebody say colored people or person of color? Are those two different things in our culture, or do they mean the same thing? Is one of them offensive or both of them offensive? What do you think?
So I think colored is a term that can be used as a term of a demeaning term, a derogatory term, but it also is a place of history. Mm-hmm. So we're not going to erase history, but that was a term that was used to identify a group of people, but it was given by the majority culture, as many of the terms that we see are given. And so this comes from the era of white fountains, white only and colored only. It wasn't black only. Right. And as language and politics has changed, we want to lump everyone together to say people of color. Mm-hmm. And so everybody's a person of some color.
Right.
But society has lumped in people of color to identify blacks, Latinos, person that come from other countries. And so we can say brown people, because that's another term that's being used now is
right.
Brown bodies or black bodies program. And a friend of ours, or she later became a friend, said, you all need to be reminded that a lot of eyes are on you all. You're located in this community where there are not a lot of you all. And so continue to keep your eyes and your ears open to all that is going on around you. There were conversations internally amongst the staff. Well, we have more African Americans than we've ever had before. Should we send over all their pictures to the local police department to let them know that they're here, that you all are here? I'm sorry, that they are here, because I wasn't a part of this conversation.
Are you kidding me?
Oh, no. It gets better. And so they said, no, what we'll do is we'll just send over the entire class. So we'll send pictures over of the entire class to the police department, and they will notice that there are more African Americans on our campus.
So I ask you, as a black man, what you see on social media and things that some people post, especially white people, and how does that actually really come across, and how does that make you feel, or other people that you're in circles with that makes them feel?
We had an experience in seminary where one of our colleagues presented a project, and it was just totally offensive and derogatory. And so we had to meet with them, meet with the professors, meet with the president of the institution. And so, and then we had another situation in my life where we had a relative who went on a social media rant. And what I think is challenging is when people do not understand, and white people understand, the privilege that they have. So there's a set of privileges that we as African Americans, our black folks, do not have. We can't exercise it. We can't earn our money, earn our way out of it to get the privilege. And so what happens is when information is conveyed or presented amongst white people, it's because I have the privilege or the authority to say these things as it is, without consideration for the people that I'm attached to. And also it becomes, just like you said, black friend or Latino friend. What happened to my friend that is Latino or my friend that is black? Because we put the label of who they are and then the friend on the back end of it as if it qualifies that they're my friend, but they have this ethnicity. It's almost like the same statement. Oh, I'm not racist because I have black friends. Do you really have black friends, or do you have a friend that happens to be black? Or is that just your designated black friend?
So you can say whatever you want.
Right. So, you can say I'm not racist. No, you're still racist, but you're a racist with a black friend. You can say, oh, I'm not sexist because I have women. No, you're sexist and you have women that are friends.
That's so good, man. Yeah.
So I think every group of people has to have a set of standards that they operate under. So whenever I see a younger cousin, maybe a younger mentee who's going on a social media rant about something, I will inbox them and say, hey, that's not representative of who I know you to be. That's not the image that you want to give other people about who you are. Even though you may be angry, you may be justified in being upset, but this is not how we conduct ourselves. Would you consider removing that? And 9 times out of 10, I'm pretty successful in saying and getting them to remove whatever this post is that they've made. When it comes to adults, there are times when I think one time I had something on my wall and it just went crazy. I mean, just all these responses. I deleted the whole post and deleted everything and said, no, my wall won't be used for your personal agenda, whatever that may be.
Yeah.
We are all Americans, and we should all be able to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps. But the question is, you're thinking that I actually have boots.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true.
So you're saying pull up yourselves by the bootstraps. You have boots. I don't have any boots. Or if I do have boots, now you're saying, okay, let's pull up ourselves by our bootstraps. My boots don't have straps on them, but yours has straps on them. And so we just have to figure out where we come into the conversation, assuming that I can't make the assumption that you are all that I see.
Well, we're assuming you're going to be like,
Yeah.
or maybe you think you should be like that now. But hey, dude, I'm from Rwanda, and I'm kind of, it's different for me, man.
Coming to America, and starting to see really what race divides that there are. Like, I didn't know. Like, I just thought everybody interacted because, coming from Rwanda, where everybody who was the same color hated each other and killed each other, I was like, oh, okay, well, at least we're different here, like significantly different, and we can either tolerate each other. No, that's not the case. Like, I didn't know what the American history was with, Black American culture. Like, I didn't know what the history was until literally, like, I'm still learning what a history is. Because it's one of those things that you have to understand, and you have to kind of get in a mindset of really trying to understand. But like, racism for me never was a hindrance. Like, did I experience racism? I think so. But I never saw it as racism. I just saw it as ignorance. Like, I like, you can't hate me if you don't know me. Like, you get to know me, you're gonna be like blown away, and you're gonna like me. Like, like there's no way you cannot not like me. And so to me, I was like, racism was like, no, you just don't know me well enough to like me. So I just always saw that as just ignorance, and never really seen it as racism. We hate what we don't understand and what we fear. And I'm like, well, I'll give you a chance to understand me. I'm not a threatening person. So that's why I was always confused. I was like, so are you like legitimately being racist right now, or are you just being ignorant? Like, which one are you? So I never really to me, I never saw them as racist, but maybe they were, but I never really saw them as that.
Yeah.
Because I never really saw racism in that, like, just in that light. Now, growing up, I can look back and say, oh, okay, yeah, that was a racist moment. Like, there was a time that me and my brother went to a church camp in Illinois, and we went to go visit a buddy of ours' house, and we were walking in a neighborhood. This little town in Illinois has not seen, at that time, probably not seen any Black people for like ever. So, like, we were like the anomaly, and we're walking down the street, and it wasn't that far. It was literally like maybe like a 5-minute walk, and we see a cop pull up. And it's like, hey, where you guys going? We're like, yeah, we're going to my friend Jeremy's house. It was like, oh, okay. Are you guys from here? We're like, no, because we still lived in Kentucky, so we were just there visiting. And he's like, okay, why don't I take you guys over there? So we hopped in his cruiser. He drove us down the street. And we got there. We didn't think nothing of it. And then the people who we're staying with, we told them that we got picked up by a cop. They were furious. We were like, wait, was that a racist moment? Like, we were still trying to figure out, like, wait, was he being racist? Oh my gosh, he was being racist. But we're like, we didn't know. Like, we really honestly didn't know if somebody called the cops or if that was like an intentional racism. But we were like, oh, okay. Like, even up to now, we're just kind of like, we were just happy we got a ride and we didn't have to walk. To be honest, we're just like, oh, thanks. Like, that guy was really nice. He was really chill. He was really cool. We had a conversation about where we're from and what we're doing there. And yeah, he seemed like a nice guy. So, like, we never really took it as that was racist. We were just, oh, hey, appreciate the ride, man. Like, good looking out.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So, like, that's just been my whole experience with like the race divide, race culture.
When you say you talk white and somebody says something like that, is it the tone and the delivery of the words? Is it the actual words you're using? Like, explain kind of that nuance.
I think that for people, I don't know if this is everywhere, but I know down south here, it is this concept of like Black people are supposed to sound a certain way. They're supposed to sound like they do in the rap videos and whatever. And so I've always been, I mean, I think I had someone specifically tell me that it's because like I pronounce words and I speak proper and so you sound white. But I don't think, and I mean, I've even heard that from white people, and I don't think that people have the recognition that that's not a compliment. Like, in a way, what you're saying is that sounding, I guess, quote unquote, intelligent is for white people.
So you're getting backhanded compliments about
Yeah.
like, hey, you're very articulate and well spoken.
Yeah.
And for, I'm not going to say it's because you're Black, but it's just.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, I can even think of a time I was going for a job and I had a friend tell me, it was at a restaurant, and I had a friend say, you know, I told my boss about you, just call up here. And so I called and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to come up there. I don't know what time it was. Like, I was like, I'm going to come up there at like 1 and I'll meet you, you know, and he's like, yeah, you have the job. Just come up here and meet me. So I get off the phone and I go there, and the guy is like, oh no, I don't have any positions open. Like I already hired somebody. I'm thinking in my head it's me. But then I like walk away and I left. And then he called me back and he's like, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. I just sent you away. And I think I knew instantly, like,
Wow.
My voice doesn't match what I look like. Like most people, and I've heard that before. Like, oh, when I heard Shavana and then I heard you talk, I'm confused. And I'm like, I know what you're trying to say in a roundabout way is that like, I didn't think you would be Black.
Right.
And I think that's just this unfair narrative that we've built, that if you sound a certain way, or if you sound articulate, like you were saying, that only belongs to white people. But I don't think, so something we talked about in Be the Bridge is I like to make a distinction between racist and ignorant. I think we use the word racist a little too loosely, but I think that so much of that is ignorance. I think that people don't have a recognition of what they're saying. And I think the times I've called people out on it, like they've been thrown off because I'm like, so what are you saying? You're saying that intelligence only belongs to white people? And they're like, no, oh no. I'm trying to compliment you. But I don't think there's that recognition that what they're saying is hurtful.
It's such a, help me understand from your perspective, because you said earlier you've been in the African American church, grew up in that.
Yes.
But you know, a lot of your current church experiences and for the past previous years have been in predominantly white churches.
Yes.
And either some of the differences or what that's like for you, being a Black woman in a predominantly white church.
I think that the thing that is I wouldn't say the hardest, but I think the thing that's disheartening oftentimes in a church being the Black person, or becoming, I guess, the token or the pepper that's in the church, is that I see that so many churches want diversity, but the way they go about it isn't the way that you achieve it. Like, I mean, I've been in leadership in churches, and in the past, there's so much talk about like, well, we need to have diversity. We need to have diversity. We need to be welcoming. And the heart is in the right place, but the way you achieve diversity is having more voices at the table.
Mm-hmm.
A room full of Caucasian males is not going to be able to figure out how to connect with Asians, Hispanics, African Americans, Indians. You can't. And if you're not, and I'm not proposing that you hire people just based off of their race, or that you just like go, grab a token off the street. But what I'm saying is that's been the thing. That's been the disheartening thing, is hearing the heart. And the heart is in the right place, but the steps aren't happening. And even if it, inviting them to the table, like something that we talked about at Be the Bridge, and something that your family does really well, is that everyone is invited. People are invited into your home, and people are invited into your life. And I think that that's something that that's disheartening for me is, and I'm not going to say all churches because I can't speak for all, but just even when I was visiting churches and trying to figure out where I was going to go, there seemed to be this like sprinkle of diversity, and either it was championing like we're diverse, or it's like, oh, we need more diversity. But then when I look at the pictures of your staff and I look at the pictures of like who your leaders are, I don't see it. I think that that's the disheartening part. I would say that, I mean, I loved being a part of the African American church, and I think that that is a question too. I'm not sure if all minorities face this, but for myself, is thinking, well, should I just be in a church that's just the majority? And I don't think I think that's a question that people need to figure out for themselves. I know that for me, I don't want to be in a church that's all one thing. You are Black and you're a woman and you're never going to be able to use that as an excuse, but you're going to have to work harder. And that's how I grew up. I was pushed. And as a kid, it hurt and I hated it, but I was pushed. C's, unacceptable. That was punishable. I was pushed. And so what came out of that is a perseverance. But then I think that people look and they say, well, I mean, you went to school, and so I know this Black person that went to college that has a career, and now I'm looking at this other Black person that is poor and on drugs or has all these kids, and that's their fault, but they don't understand that for me, I grew up with a mom and a dad. I grew up middle class-ish. I grew up and went to a private school. I'm in a field, the mental health, which race is not a factor in mental health. And so I think that they assume that they understand the Black person's story because they know me. And you don't understand, you know my story. You don't know everyone's story just because you know me. That I am not, being the token Black friend, I think oftentimes becomes, I know the Black race because I know you. And we are not, it's not a homogeneous thing. It's diverse, just like it's diverse in any culture. You can't say that you understand a person, like a whole group struggle because you know one person. And I'm thinking that's the pitfall that people fall into, is that they get to know me and I'm friendly and I'm extroverted and I know how to make people comfortable so they feel comfortable. So they're like, oh, I understand the Black people struggle because I know her, but no, you only know my story. When Obama put himself in for the presidential election, the things that came out of people's mouths. I remember looking at my sister and being like, I think we're friends with racist people. Like, it was like terrifying because it's like, I didn't know you felt that way. And I feel like that's the first time that on Facebook, that's when people's thoughts started leaking through. I don't know if you like remember the era of Facebook. We used to be like, how do you feel? And people put like, I'm hungry. I'm having a hard day.
Just
but
feel
like,
what you're going through. Yeah, you're older than me, so I mean, I know.
Oh Lord, yeah, I'm decrepit.
I'm just kidding.
But like, this was like the point where people were saying such harsh things, and so fast forward that to now, people will say harsh things, and I think that for me, for some people that post things, it is that scary thing of like, I didn't know they felt this way.
Right.
I had no idea they felt this way. And then I think I know that it's like, okay, they don't feel this, like for them, there's categories. Like there's like Black people and then there's you. And I just really dislike when they say, and I have Black friends. And I'm like, I'm not co-signing on that. You didn't ask me and I'm not co-signing on that. But I think there is this, for me, there's a hurtfulness. Like it really hurts when people that I'm close to, and at the time, people that I worship with and people that I serve with and people that I love and I know that love me say something about the Black race and say something about Black people.
You know what I mean? You're more of an older man now and you get viewed as like maybe people stereotyping or expecting you to be like this.
Yeah,
and you're like, hey man, I'm all this. You don't know.
Yeah, actually when I went to high school, I transitioned to Better Neighborhood too. So like, yeah, that perspective of me as a young Black man or a young Black kid was a lot different. Like, I kind of sometimes felt like, oh, automatically, like you said, you're a thug, you're this, you're that. And just other people got privileges that I didn't, you know. I kind of question that a lot, like, what? Then that's why I'm like how I am now, like, man, you know, forget that, man. I'm gonna be myself. I didn't really like that. Like, don't look at me like that.
Yeah.
This recent last spring, he played on a predominantly white baseball team. There were 4 black kids, and there were instances where we had birthday parties, right? It's crazy, but there were like 4 birthday parties. 3 were white. Everyone showed up. But then when it came to the black person's parties, like, no one responded to the group text messaging and all that. I was like, I mean, that just threw me off. I'm like, I didn't want to even invite anyone to my son's birthday party after that. You know, I wanted to invite the whole baseball team, but
Yeah.
I didn't want to tell my son that no one, you know, wanted to participate. I don't know how he would take that. Like, I have racist friends, you know, like I have white friends that don't really like black people, but they like me, you know.
Why?
So, I mean, I guess they like me
'Cause
as
you're-
a person, man. I mean, I don't know.
So
I
like,
don't know.
so Giovanna, who co-hosts this sometimes, she likes to sometimes say that sometimes she's been the token black friend for white people. So
That too.
they feel comfortable with her as the one kind of black friend, and man, I'm diverse. I have a black friend, and so that gives me freedom to kind of think how I want to think, say what I want to say, because I do. Look, I have a black friend, and yeah, I do generally care about them. But then all of a sudden, when racial things happen or something comes up, I can still have these views, but I'm not racist because, hey, Rodney's my friend, and I feel comfortable with him.
Well, I don't like it. I don't like it when they try to act like they're not racist. You have to be 100% honest, but it's not my job to judge. Like, you know, I don't try to change. I just lead by example, man. I don't try to change their opinion, but I don't consider myself a token black. There's been times where I had to stand up for some of my white friends, man, you know, because
Yeah.
people realize that, oh yeah, he doesn't like black people, you know, but
That seems
they're
so
cool
crazy.
to me. They're cool to me. I mean, they like me.
But they'll say they don't like other black people, or it's just in the way they speak and act.
They'll give their opinions, and I know. You
So
know?
they feel freedom to say things that might be disparaging about black people to you.
I mean, they'll be
because they-
respectful a little. I mean, they'll be respectful towards me. Like, I mean, sometimes we agree
Yeah.
because I have pet peeves and stuff about my own race.
Sure. Yeah, me too.
Yeah, so it's like sometimes we agree, you know, but I try not to.
But you want them to feel open that they can talk to you and not just
Exactly.
like beat them with a
exactly.
stick
I
and
want
say,
them to feel open.
leave
with
me alone. Yeah.
Yeah, I want them to be cordial. So, yeah.
But for those who might not know, or it doesn't ever have to cross their mind, how would you explain the fear and the scared feeling that you have when you think about your boys?
So that the things that I guess that the fear, I know that just them having brown skin makes them a target.
Mm.
And I know that. So let me think of how to put it in words. Even as young children, if they are in a class and they are the only African Americans in the class, and if some disturbance happens, they are more likely to be questioned first than the other children. That happens, and like we've seen that happen.
Mm-hmm.
This is not on more than one occasion. Here's something that I'm scared of, and I've talked to them about. I tell them, when you are with friends, you double check. And we talk about like when you're older. So we start talking about this narrative now. When you're older, you double check who they're going to have in the car, what they're going to have in the car, where they're going. And we talk about that because I said, you can be with friends and they will be very quick and easy to, if something bad does happen, to not take the blame. And you'll be left there and you have to take the blame. And I'm scared for that because I know that can leave a record. I mean, I worked with juvenile offenders, boys ages 15 to 24, and they had harsh sentences and things for what we would consider as like minor events. And then to hear them tell it, and yes, I took it with a grain of salt, but a lot of times their offenses were they were left with the blame for something that they hadn't done, but they got stuck with the blame. Yeah. And I remember walking away with those lessons thinking, if I ever have children, boys in particular, I'm going to share with them a different way to walk through this life and to navigate the tension that does exist. Another thing that I fear for is, you know how you let kids like play with squirt guns and Nerf guns? Mm-hmm. I only allow my kids to play with those in our backyard because I know what it's like for a young African-American boy to be walking down the street with a gun. Yeah. I don't want them to get comfortable with that and then do that in real life. I don't even want to take that risk. So something as simple as Nerf guns, a lot of people don't think about, oh, you know, we'll have a Nerf gun fight or whatever. But for me, that's a big deal because I know that potentially someone could take them as a target. And I don't want them to have to navigate that part of life. I know I can't shelter them for a long time, but I sort of want to just shield them from like the ugly side of life, but unfortunately I can't. I have to be honest with them and tell them, you know, why they can't, you know, walk down the street with a gun or, you know, a gray and black Nerf gun. You can't, you know, no. When they play at the park, if they're playing with predominantly white children, my older boys, I've already told them, if you are bigger and taller, I don't want you pushing, shoving. If someone cries, help them up and then step away. Because I've already seen them get yelled at the park for something they didn't do. Someone just assumed that they did it. So yeah, that's my everyday, like, living with Black sons. That happens. And I don't, you know, unless you walk in my shoes or someone that looks like me or, you know, a darker skinned person, you will never realize that kind of tension exists on a daily basis. We go in stores and have people follow us around, especially like smaller shops. We love antique shops and little curiosity shops and things like that. And we go in them and people will follow us around because they're afraid that we're going to steal. And then when we don't steal and we actually buy something and the kids tell them a fact about an object they saw in there, they're like, oh, wow, you know, this is different. But that's the world that we live in on a daily basis. So yeah, those are my fears. Another fear is like I teach my kids, they love hoodies. Who doesn't? Like especially this weather. But I teach them like you don't go in any place, you don't walk down the street with your hood on. When you walk into a place, your hood is always off, always. I don't care if your head is freezing, it's off so that people can see all of you and be a little less threatened by you. And they're, the older sons are 9 and 10, and they may not understand it fully, but I'd rather start the narrative now before a habit is formed than have to break a habit and it be very painful. I think as just a mom, I've started these conversations very early to be proactive. Yeah. And to maybe just help my fears a little bit.
The whole, Black moms can be meaner. I've heard from Hispanic friends that their moms are also very similar. But I feel like there's more of a realism of like, listen, this is the world. You are safe here, but the world you're stepping out into is different. And you need to know, you need to be aware.
Yeah, I agree 100%. There's so many things I think like, oh, I've got to make sure I tell them that. I've got to tell them this. Another one I thought of just recently that I'm going to sit down and share with them is that if they ever are arrested, God forbid, but if they are, that they are not to speak unless they have the lawyer or a parent present. And that is legal and it is okay. And it is the safest thing to do because I've just heard way too many stories. And of where police have forced kids to agree to something they haven't done, and then they get a record for a crime they never committed. And again, it was because parents just failed to tell their child, you don't have to speak unless you have a lawyer or a parent present and through the age 17. And I said, I'm going to tell my boys that, because again, when your child is a target, you don't know when they will be the target. And so to me, the way to be prepared is to make sure that I tell them these things ahead of time. This is just a way to navigate our lives in the world that we live in, and to feel more safe and more secure. We want what our white counterparts want out of the lives that we live: success, health, happiness, and safety. That's what we all want. It doesn't matter. Those don't hinge on your skin color. We all want those. We want it just as much as the person next to us. So yeah.
It's for you. You grew up in the church with a father that's a pastor. How do you think that the church can walk alongside its Black brothers and sisters as we're navigating what this world is right now?
So I think it starts with community. And when I say community, like community within the church, but I think it starts with people being willing to reach out and ask questions. And I know that's kind of hard, but I'm like a person, I like to ask questions. I'm kind of nosy. And I've learned one of the things that I love is meeting new people, and I especially love different cultures. But the way that you learn about different cultures is you go and you just ask questions. And now obviously there's a right way to ask, but most people are really excited to find someone who's interested in their culture that is not from their culture, if that, hopefully I worded that correct. And I think that narrative actually needs to happen in America. For one thing, we are entirely way too private sometimes. And I think in church, in community, don't be scared to walk up to a person who maybe doesn't look like you, their skin color is different, and ask, like, hi, do you like, I don't know, it could be, do you like this kind of food, or what kind of music do you like? Or, I kind of do that with people. I want to know. And you'd be surprised what genres of music or types of food or things someone is interested in, and they may be very similar to yours. And I think once you build a relationship based on similarities, that allows you to go into the deeper topics. And I think that allows a church to see what are the topics, like a leader especially, what are the topics that we might need to start covering in our church? How can I think you said it earlier, we like to identify with others, and no one likes to feel isolated. And I think a lot of times Black brothers and sisters in churches feel slightly isolated from their other brothers and sisters in church, because there's not true community made, because there's no one ever asks about their culture or what are the things that you like. And if you start doing that, that breaks down barriers, like huge barriers. And it also creates an environment for people to feel comfortable to talk about the things that they don't like. And pastors play a huge part in making the environment comfortable for both groups, or, however many types of ethnicities are in your church. Pastors play a huge part in making that environment possible for their members. And I think, honestly, change has to happen at the top. Yeah. And it flows down through the top. So if there's a pastor, he needs to be willing to address it. You see something on the news and it disturbs you, go talk to a Black member in your church and see their take, and maybe bring it before the congregation, talk about it. Have a open type of church service and just talk about it. And it could be like, have a panel and have people tell their side of stories and things. These are ways, there's no easy way sometimes to come into the space where you talk about the hard things. So sometimes they just have to be done. Yeah. but they have to start from the top.
Yeah. When did either like health or gender or race, when did any of those kind of, I don't want to say issues come to play, but do you remember in any of those scenarios how old you were? You remember like, oh, I am maybe different when I didn't think I was, and people might look at me differently because of being a woman or being black or being having these kind of health things.
My eye opener realizing that, you know, race was a thing was when I moved to Savannah. And I'm not sure if that's because of the things that were happening politically, or if that was just because of the experiences that I was, you know, dealt with.
Do you ever remember your parents having to teach you anything about your race just to prepare you for anything, or was it just a natural?
Yeah, no, actually my dad more than anything. My dad always, and my mom as well, but I remember just growing up, my parents would always tell me you have to do 10 times more than the next person. And
just specifically for your race? Or?
Yeah, just for my race. As a black female, it's like you have to work 10 times harder. And, you know, I never really understood what that meant. I just thought, like, you know, we all have to work hard. And my eye was like, okay. But then looking back at it, my dad was always sending me subliminal messages to tell me, like, you have to really work hard in this world. And if it wasn't, like, for those small messages then, I probably would still be kind of confused now. Because I think, like, as a young kid, I was not aware of race. I wasn't aware, like, okay, black and white. Like, of course, I can see it, but I didn't know there was a harsh difference. I grew up learning the regular textbook message of what race is and, you know, slavery and all that other stuff, which doesn't do much now for, you know, the children growing up and learning about American history. And a lot of people go, well, you know, to be of a white person or to be of any other descent other than African American is kind of, you know, you have that blessing of knowing exactly where you're from. You exactly know where your heritage is. And for me and many other people out there like me, you don't know. And to do at Ancestry.com or any other things out there that do like heritage finds, it's kind of skeptical to even think that, because they've erased so much and they lied so much about what our history was to the point where we had to start over from scratch. But eventually I do wish to find out exactly what I am.
Yeah.
Because having sickle cell is originated from Africa, so
right.
It has to be somewhere down there. And a lot of things in the media started to change my perspective like that. So like the Black Lives Matter movement started happening. And even though that's been on the surface for a while, it started catching my eye. And because, you know, I'm a black person and black lives also do matter. And so I then started looking into like, okay, what can I do as a filmmaker to make a statement, to bring a voice to issues?
Did you resonate with it? Were you feeling certain things? Was it just merely like, oh, there's people that are like me and I don't resonate as much? Or was it like, wow, this is really affecting me because I'm seeing things that I didn't see before, but now like, I have been viewed this way or I have felt this way. Like, can you explain why that was starting to click in for you?
Because I saw things in the media that I never seen before, and I started to resonate with me that this is happening in my own community, and it affects myself too, whether if it's in my face or not. It's somehow going to affect me down the road. And I think I vividly remember lying in my room one time, and it was what's the word? There was something happening on the news where it was a whole bunch of protests happening, and it was, I can't remember where it was located, and I'm not sure if it's important or not, but I remember it being an issue, and it was a lot of like violence and just vandalism happening, and I'm like, because people are trying to show their voice. You know, this is the way that happens. All this anger built up from years on years on. This is the calmest way I believe that it could have happened, is by the protests that was happening. And from there on, I was like, okay. And I found the passion for it. I got connected with a club at school called the Black Student Association. And I became the treasurer for that for a year. And then with building a community or building a family with them, I became the president for 2 years of the Black Student Association. And even being with them and hearing other people's story from different parts of the world, I became more passionate and fell in love deeper and deeper. And yeah, it made me never want to look back. And everything I do is for Black culture. Everything I breathe, sleep, eat is Black culture, because there's not many people out there that's doing it, and at least for the way that I want to. Their stories, you know, now, luckily, thankfully, their stories now that's coming out. You know.
When you were 18 at that age and getting in trouble and all the things you were doing and seeing where you're at now in life and just like, how do you view that period of time?
It's just crazy because despite all the things that we was doing, we always wanted to do right. We always wanted to impact the youth. We always wanted to do this, but we was doing so much wrong stuff. We was connected with so much bad influences. And it's just like we always had that good in us, but we was doing bad based off all the stuff that we experienced all through life. And we just got to a point where we kind of threw our future to the side and said we gonna stick to the streets and we gonna do what we want to do, and that's how we live. That's how we was living.
All right, so tell me about crack dealing then, because that's a whole different ball game there.
Yeah, man. Like we wasn't, like July said, we wasn't no big crack sellers, but we did sell some, and it's crazy that I look back at it now. We sold the same thing that got us taken away.
Yeah.
So my mom did crack, and we ended up selling it, and it's sad because we ended up selling it to our family members.
Wow.
So I'm sitting here watching a person in my family selling him crack, and he's doing it right here in our face. And I look back at it now like, whoa, that was a dirty game, but we was just in it because we was trying to make a little bit of change.
You said what? I was trying to process it because we're talking about our 17-year-old little cousin, and this is our cousin that when we was in South Carolina, we hang with him like every day. We smoking, we writing raps. We talking about, hey man, we got to do this so we can get out the hood. We got to do this to get our family out the hood. We got to do this so we could do something with our life. Be mindful. He didn't even. He was, I think it was like his senior year, junior year in high school. What happened was he ended up sneaking out the house to go buy some weed, and it was basically like a drug deal went wrong. He got shot in the head. He was only 17 years old, and it's like when Tavon told me that, I was like, ain't no way. I was like, not my little cousin. Like it still hurt me to this day, and it was just like wow, like he's 17 and he died just because going to buy some weed.
Like, did any of your perspective of race, has it changed in any way of what you thought and what you see now?
No, I don't think so. I was always really pretty open to, each and every, race or anything like that. But it's just like, I don't think that, I ever had like any issues with that.
You guys having any bad experiences yourselves, like here at all, or? Yeah.
I don't think we ever really. I was, just like I said, I was cool with all different types of race, Mexican, good. White. You know, I never actually put a like, okay, I'm black. I'm gonna talk to black people.
Right.
But one time we got connected with this dude. He was a Hebrew Israelite, and he kind of started telling us this stuff, and me and Tavon kind of like trying to we right there follow him up, like he right there talking about I don't like white people. And then me and Tavon right there, we don't know no better, you feel me? Like we right there follow him up. But, just like I said, I never had any, the whole time, we never shared this, but the whole time in high school, back to when we didn't know our family, we always thought our mom was white.
Really?
Yeah. We told people our mom was white and we was from Alaska.
Why That's really funny.
Because we was lighter than this.
Really?
Of course, if you light skin and of course you being in the system and you don't know who your mom is, so we had to come up with something.
Yeah.
But we always, and I think I had a dream before that my mom had long hair and that she was white, so I kind of stick with that. So.
Man, that's really funny.
I love everybody.
You're not that old, but that was a little while ago.
Yes.
And that area right now is fairly diverse. I'm wondering.
Yes.
What it was like racially back when you were growing up, because I think it's changed a lot over the years. Do you see a difference in when you were younger to where it is now?
It's a big difference. Very much more diverse. Even back then, I was the first black in the Boy Scouts there locally. I was the first, and far as I know to this day, was the only black to play on the tennis team in the high school. So, but the good thing was my community was very accepting from a racial aspect, and but at the same time, we we had our racial issues in the community, but they were accepting, especially to kids. And I think that was the big part. As a young kid, I was very well accepted, and just people helped me along the way. But now, like you say, it's more diverse, especially from the county is split by North Bryan, South Bryan, and it's like two different worlds. And you see a lot of military, a lot of corporate people who work at the major corporations locally has moved in, which changed a lot of the dynamics of how Bryan County is.
Did you ever see race differently at a certain stage in life when you're younger? Like, that's really neat that you felt accepted as a young kid. But was there ever a point, or I guess was your aunt or anybody growing up telling you like, hey, these things might be different for you? Or did you find out certain things when you did become a young man or an adult and you saw things maybe a little bit differently than kind of how you were accepted as a kid?
I think I saw it more once I left Bryan County, is when reality hit me that, yeah, from a human standpoint, we're all the same. But from a cultural standpoint, we are different. And I had to learn to understand that there are differences, that culturally we are different, but you learn how to navigate those waters the same way. And, I've had some tough times as I traveled this country, living in different areas, working in different areas. But at the same time, you just find a way to understand, we're different. And, racial issues are learned behavior. Most of the time when you see negative behavior, it's learned behavior. Because two newborn kids or kids 3 to 4 years old, they'll play together. They don't care what color you are or anything. But what eventually that learned bad behavior gets in them and it start to manifest itself. But it's up to us, and I always encourage the young people to understand we are different, but we're one and the same, and find the common ground. And that's how you get back to working together.
Yeah.
And it was a bunch of bad advice that led to a situation where his wife jumped on my daughter's mother in the store. A physical altercation in the front of the store, broad light on Montgomery Street, right down the street from the gate. The MPs are right there. And she dove on my daughter's mom because she did not want those N-words behind the counter. Okay? Look where we're at. We're in the middle of the hood. If you had anything significant on me, we wouldn't be having this conversation on my porch. We'd be having it downtown. You wouldn't come to my house politely. This ain't the suburbs. You're not going to come and ring my doorbell and go, ding dong, Mr. Bryan, could you please come downtown and talk with us? You're going to come kick in my door and scare my family. So no, we're not doing that. Okay. They don't do you like that unless it didn't have anything on you in the first place. But as they told me, because they didn't like my mouth, they didn't like the way that I spoke to them, that they were going to do this to me. They do it on the regular. And there was nothing that I could do about it.
How do you have conversations with people of another race about race without being awkward?
Good. These are good. That's a great question, because I think so much of that is, I wonder how much of that is overthinking, right? Like, that something about that question indicates to me that you're going into it already aware that we're different, and you want to talk about race specifically. So I would say to start is, we don't start a relationship there. We start on commonality first. I do not suggest just going up to somebody and asking them about their race.
Hey, I noticed you were black, and I was wondering if we could have a race conversation right now.
Or do people really blank? Like, I don't think we start that way. But I definitely think that there's nothing wrong with asking people what their ethnicity is or asking them their background. I don't think that that's a bad thing. But I do think the first step for me, in my mind, is not going into it with the mindset that this is going to be awkward. Does that make sense? I think that going ahead and like having that in you kind of already kind of sets you up for it.